It's 2025 and it's the 20th anniversary of Avatar The Last Airbender. Man, time flies.
You're a living relic.
Thanks. I try.
I remember when the show first started popping up, I couldn't wait to get home to watch it. And after all of these years, there's still some stuff I didn't know about the show. So today, I wanted to share some cool stuff I found reading articles and listening to some podcasts. Let me know if any of these are new to you or if it's just a refresher. First up, Toph originally was supposed to be a boy. They said they were going to make a muscly kind of jock guy who's going to be a foil to Sokka's nerdiness. But their head writer Aaron made a good argument about Toph being a girl and they went with that idea. Toph is many fans' favorite character, and I think she really added to the show with her personality being sarcastic, the jokes, especially with Sokka. And then we see the other moments like when her and Sokka had a talk about Katara acting motherly or watching over them too much, and it was a nice moment. She had said some positive stuff about her. After watching the show, I couldn't think of things being changed up, and Toph being a guy, I think things would have been different for the show. And the character probably wouldn't have had an impact like the current Toph did for fans.
I am so glad we added you to the group.
Now, in Avatar The Last Airbender, there was a mystery of what happened to Zuko's mom. I remember the story, but there are some people out there who may not even know that this was talked about, and I even have some friends who didn't know what happened. Well, the writers were going to solve that question in the series finale, but it didn't happen. Instead, it was revealed in the novel called Avatar The Last Airbender: The Search. Zuko, Team Avatar, and Azula set out to uncover what happened to Zuko and Azula's mom. I'm not going to spoil it, but when I first read it, I'm not going to front, I was kind of surprised how the story unfolded. It was interesting to learn about Zuko's mom past and just some of the stuff that happened along the way. The novel was released in 3 parts. It is a good read, especially if you want to know what happened to Zuko and Azula's mom. When it comes to shows, the unaired pilot may be different than how the official show is. Did you know that Mitchell Musso, who you may remember from Hannah Montana and the voice of Jeremy from Phineas and Ferb, had voiced Aang in the unaired pilot? And then eventually we all know that Zach Tyler Eisen had took over as Aang. It's been a minute since I've seen the unaired pilot, and when I watched it for this video, I did hear the voice difference, but it still matched. Either way, it worked out in the end, but it's pretty cool to see that there was another voice before Zach took over. Continuing with the unaired pilot, in it, Zuko had a trained hawk. It was probably intended to give the prince a counterpart to Momo, since they did show a moment of them having a battle. Later on, when the series had started, there was a bird that had some resemblance to the one that he had that was purchased by Sokka. It was in the episode called The Runaway, where in it he was given the name Haki. That would have been kind of interesting to see. Anytime Zuko would have ran into them, he would have had a battle, then it would have been like Momo versus Zuko's bird. If you ever wondered what inspired Avatar The Last Airbender, Brian and Mike talked about it in an IGN interview. Brian said the initial inspiration was Japanese anime, Hong Kong action and kung fu cinema, yoga, and Eastern philosophies. Then Mike added that their love for the films of Hayao Miyazaki, the stories and emotional depth of Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke were big inspirations. Also, the character design and animation of Fooly Cooly was influential as well. I know what y'all gonna say. I haven't watched any movies by Hayao Miyazaki. If there are any that y'all recommend, comment them below. Since we are talking about the beginning of Avatar, the main character's basic looks were created pretty quickly. It was during the 2 weeks between coming up with the idea and pitching the show. So when they had a pitch meeting for the show, Brian mentions in an interview that he sketched Sokka and Katara on the back of a sheet of paper an hour before the meeting. And their designs did evolve since then, but people would recognize them from the first drawings. I think it was pretty impressive that he was able to draw Sokka and Katara an hour before the meeting. And then they had to go in there and talk about the show the characters, and then from there be able to expand everything else. When y'all think about Avatar The Last Airbender, could y'all imagine Zuko not being in the show? Well, he almost wasn't. From the Avatar Braving the Elements podcast, which is hosted by Janet Varney and Dante Bosco, the voice actors of Korra and Prince Zuko. They had talked to Eric Coleman, who worked at Nickelodeon, and he said it was supposed to be the main trio and then the villain Ozai. But he did throw in there, what if somebody else was kind of like chasing them, like a villain who's a kid. Zuko originally was supposed to be an adult, but it got changed to him being a little closer in age to Aang and his friends. That's something I didn't know about when you watch the show. It just seemed like he was planned to be there from the beginning. Him just being in the show added a little bit more because you got to see his side and what he's going through while Aang is trying to deal with his stuff. I think that was the right decision for them to throw him in there, besides just having Ozai as the main villain, or at least the person that they're going to be fighting. This right here I thought was pretty cool. Both creators had worked on Family Guy and a few other shows. Michael was a director at Film Roman Studios, gaining credits with King of the Hill, Family Guy, and Mission Hill. I'm not gonna front, those are some throwback shows right there. I know Family Guy's still going and King of the Hill is making a return. And Brian was a character designer at Film Roman Studios for Family Guy and an assistant director for Mission Hill and King of the Hill. This next one, I couldn't even believe it. Apparently, Uncle Iroh was supposed to betray Zuko. Iroh's original role was to betray Zuko at some point in the series, acting as a double agent. If that ever would have happened in the series, seeing that moment, it would have hurt, and Zuko, he would have been devastated. All the times that we seen the two of them, Iroh giving him advice, the wisdom that he spoke, and just overall being there for Zuko. Just for it to end with him betraying Zuko and all that time, it just would have been an act. I think fans would have been mad if they saw that. If you ever wondered who helped out with the martial arts in Avatar The Last Airbender, it was Sifu Kisu. And he's also the one who suggested that each of the different nations could have a different style of kung fu. Before this, I never looked too deep into who put together the martial arts for the show, but I thought this was interesting. And he made the right call to have the different nations use different types of kung fu. That adds variety and it showcases the different styles. Now everyone remembers the main villain, Fire Lord Ozai, the cruel, easily angered, and merciless leader who burned part of his son's face. He was played by Mark Hamill, who many remember him playing as Luke Skywalker, and another villain he played as was the Joker. We got introduced to the character Commander Zhao early on, but do you ever wonder what inspired the character? From an IGN interview, Mike gave the details about what inspired Commander Zhao. He said that when he was writing the dialogue for the character, he was inspired by Jason Isaacs' chilling performance as the villain in The Patriot. So when it came to casting a character, he asked their casting director, Marianne, if she could find someone like Jason Isaacs. And a few days later, she got the actual actor. I thought that was some nice information. I didn't know he was inspired by an actor's performance, and then they went and got the actual actor. At any point in time, if you ever watched Avatar The Last Airbender, even if it's just for memes, you've heard of the Cabbage Guy. Well, the character was supposed to make an appearance one time for the jokes, but he was brought back. It was mentioned that the possible idea for him to be reoccurring was from the Three Old Guys and Cowboy Bebop. I'm not mad at them bringing that character back. It was funny, and then also you kind of felt sorry for him because his cabbages got destroyed. Every time he popped on screen, you already knew what time it was. Them cabbages were going to get destroyed. All he was trying to do was sell some cabbages. Aang's trying to balance the world, and he's trying to balance somebody's meal. Moving along, I didn't know about this at all. Apparently, Azula was supposed to have an arranged marriage. One of the subplots of the final season was for Azula being set up in an arranged marriage. And as you can tell, that idea didn't happen. I don't know if they were going to have her marry somebody that was the opposite of her and that could have changed her. Or it could have been somebody who was just like Azula. If that were to happen, I don't think that world would have been able to handle that. One Azula is enough for them to deal with.
You and I will be the strongest couple in the entire world. We will dominate the earth!
I found this out way later after the show was done, and that is Uncle Iroh had two voice actors. The first voice actor was Mako, whose voice you may have heard in another popular show who sadly had passed away. And in the middle of season 2, he was replaced by his understudy Greg. Whether you could tell the difference or not, just listening to the wisdom that he spoke and some of the funny or emotional moments, they both delivered a great performance. Now, let's talk about some more character inspirations. The Big Bad Hippo was inspired by Andre the Giant and King Kong Bundy and was voiced by Kevin Michael Richardson. He's the one who voiced many different characters in many different shows like Static Shock as Robert Hawkins and The Cleveland Show and Family Guy as Cleveland Jr. The Boulder was inspired by Dwayne Johnson, also known as The Rock. From what I've seen online, they tried to get The Rock to voice the Boulder. They weren't able to, but they did get another professional wrestler to voice the Boulder, and that is Mick Foley. Do any of y'all remember Bosco the Bear? He was named after their friend Lisa's dog, and Lisa also worked on the show. Also, June Shearshoe Nyla was named after her other dog. In addition, when they talked about this on the podcast, June was based on Lisa visually and Mai was based on her personality. We not done with the information about Uncle Iroh. Apparently, he was supposed to just be a teacher. Early on, they had the idea that Zuko would travel with a mentor figure for a while. They thought he would be Zuko Sifu, a teacher with a gruff personality who trained Zuko. I couldn't really see Uncle Iroh having like a bad temper or showing like little patience. It's just weird to think about that, comparing it to the version of the character that they went with. If they would have went with that original one, it would have been a slightly different show. After a while, I think people would have been annoyed by the character and he wouldn't be as likable as he is now. Everyone's favorite lemur, Momo, was almost going to be a little bit different. From some articles I read, it mentioned that when Momo was first being written, it was once considered that he would be the reincarnated spirit of Gyatso. Gyatso was a mentor and a friend to Aang. He was there for a part of his life, and if he was able to return and be there for the rest of it, that would have been nice. This is something that I recently found out. I didn't know that Katara's original name was supposed to be Kaya. The reason for that name change was explained in a book that I haven't checked out yet. It's called Avatar The Last Airbender, The Art of the Animated Series. The reason for the name change was because there was a video game out and the character's name was Kaya. Due to the fact that the protagonist in the game was also named Kaya, Nickelodeon's legal team forced the show's producers to pick something else. But the name did get used in the series. Katara's mom name is Kaya and also Katara's daughter name is Kaya. I wanted to add two bonus ones for y'all real quick. The first one is Sokka may have been a little bit more of a serious character and that changed when Jack DeSena got the part. Just think, if Jack didn't get the part, we wouldn't have got the Sokka that we know today. And the second one is the first drawing of Aang had Naga in it before Appa was drawn. Naga may not have been in the first series, but Naga was in The Legend of Korra. Also in that drawing, Momo was a Cyclops monkey and his name was Momo 3. That was just some of the things many may not have known about the show, or this could have been a refresh for some. And there's probably even more stuff about the show to talk about. But I'm interested to hear y'all thoughts. Comment below. Did you know some of the stuff that was talked about in this video?